Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Billie Shepard. Billie is the founder of Billie Shepard and Associates, a company that helps leaders and entrepreneurs better communicate. She is an acting teacher turned speaking coach. She has tapped into the most effective theater techniques and customized them for application to the business world. As leaders, communication is critical to our success, and I'm honored to have Billie on the show to help us become better communicators. So Billie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you, and I'm really interested in this subject because communication is really important, and you bring it this idea of communication from a completely different perspective. So I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about it. So first of all, the question I always have to myself is when I first saw your material and saw your website, I thought to myself, how does an actor, producer, director, and an acting coach get into the world of business communication? Tell us about your background and how did you end up in this world of business communication?
Well, it's a long story. No, I'm kidding. It's not that long, really. The fact of the matter is, I, for decades, taught acting and acted. And about 25 years ago, I live in Silicon Valley, the Bay Area. And while I was watching yet another horrible torture of slide death, I thought, I can help these people. It's not that difficult with the techniques that I know as an actor and a performer and as a director. I can give these people a handful of techniques that will make them play the role of speaker, leader, CEO more effectively. And at that time, I was invited to help some people in a corporation. They got the same idea. Maybe I could help them with some acting techniques and word of mouth. And one day I got a call from a presentation coach in San Francisco. And he said, will you come and help me? I've heard good things about you. I've got a client in a couple of days. Will you help me? And that man took me by the hand and taught me how to organize a business, taught me how to charge, taught me how to get paid, taught me, he was a wonderful, wonderful man. And then I started just making phone calls. Hey, do you need some help with your presentation skills on your teams? And then word of mouth.
That's fantastic. One thing you said when you were talking about you getting into this position, you said you were helping people play the role of CEO and leader. That's really interesting. So it's interesting because, these people are the CEO and leader, but when they're on stage and when they're communicating either in a meeting or with a large group, they've got to play the role. Is this where you see the blending of theater and business kind of coming together?
In all ways, communication, everyone is playing a role. I raised two kids. They're grown, high functioning, good citizens, adults now. They just turned out fantastic. But at one point they were teenagers, and I had to play the role of a mother because everything in my instincts was either I want to give you everything you want because I love you so much, but you still can't go to the slumber party. Or all of we're always playing a role, to make a long story short. And nothing much has changed since Aristotle, where he said, the reason that we speak and try and communicate is to persuade. So we're always trying to persuade, and everyone is assigned a role. And if your role as a manager, you've got to behave accordingly. And you may have the gifts and the knowledge, but you still need to learn more skills, especially up to CEOs. I'm coaching 2 C-level people now, and one that wants to move in to C-level. And they're all learning these skills of how to speak in a manner that is indicating the role so that their messages are clearly understood. They can be sure that their messages are understood. We're all playing a role, bottom line.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, so essentially you're bridging this gap between corporate communication and this theatrical or artistic world. What can we learn from theatrical techniques that can better help us be better communicators and help us motivate our audiences, whether it's in small meetings or large venues? What can we learn from the theater world?
Well, that's you used a wonderful word. You said something like bridging the gap. And it's interesting that you use that. I'm going to answer that question two ways if I can remember my train of thought that long. The first is philosophically, communication is, and the skills, speaking clearly, being in touch with our body, having the ability to improvise, being clear on our intention. That goes with whether we're speaking to one person or 1,000 or 10,000. It's got to be the same. We have to be aware of our body, our voice, our intention, and we have to have the ability to improvise. The idea of certain specific techniques, if I can give you an example, they can be taught. For instance, everything went to Zoom.
Yes.
And when I was an actor, I had to learn to transfer my character from stage to film, or from film back to stage. There are techniques, and we take endless classes to learn these techniques, and we practice and practice. But they're pretty basic. And if you like, I can show you the difference for a Zoom meeting that's an acting technique, for instance, if you'd like.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to show you what is so helpful for a Zoom meeting. And you may know this already, but if your listeners don't know, it's very important to get the heck away from the slides. And if you can drop your slide, let me show you. This is me on a Zoom meeting looking at myself, which is an addiction. I cannot pass a window without looking at myself. Okay, I think it's in my DNA. That's me looking at myself. This is me looking at you now with your darling smile, and I'm seeing your face and I'm seeing your reactions. This is me looking at my phone, checking in to see who's calling me while I'm on a Zoom meeting. And this is me looking at you. This is you and me connected.
Yeah.
You see the difference. And if people could learn to drop the slide and play the camera, they will better be able to engage the audience and connect with the audience.
I really like that. In fact, when I'm on Zoom meetings and even when I do these interviews, I put the person I'm talking to as close to the camera as possible. So I'm actually as close as I can, looking them straight in the eye and having that conversation. Because I do think it's funny when you do see people like they might be looking at their monitor over here and you see the side of their face, you don't see them actually physically looking at you. And I do notice the difference. It almost feels like they're disconnected. So having that eye contact, even though it's virtual, is really important.
Well, you know that they are disconnected. They don't
Yeah.
just look disconnected. They are. All of their energy is going there. The difference between in-person communicating is an energy push. In acting, we learn very early on. Hopefully, an actor is taught stage first so they can transfer to camera more easily. But we learn to push the molecules out way to the back rows so Mr. Jones can get our message loud and clear and see everything. The movement is larger. We're pushing those molecules. The camera does the work. The camera takes the energy and pulls it and delivers it to the other person. It's an energetic experience. If we're not looking directly in the camera to allow it to do its work, we're not as connected. You see, now I'm looking at you, and we're not as connected. So it's a way of using science and art to affect human communication.
No, I really like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. And I know when I'm public speaking with a group, I find it easier, mostly because I can look to different members of the audience. I can feel their energy. They can, I can project to them. When I'm in a Zoom meeting, sometimes, especially when I've got a large group that I'm training or teaching or having a meeting, it's hard to have that individual connection like that. And so what you're saying is that that camera is the connection. That camera is my audience's eyeballs, and you want to make sure that you're looking in that direction.
And that's very typical what you're describing. And the timing when I'm coaching a workshop, we have interactively people practice this, and the timing is, I deliver my important message to you. I'm giving you this important message, and then I quickly look down and see that you received it and that you're listening, and then I look up again. It's a quick check.
Yeah.
And those of us that teach groups, we need a quick check to see if they're, here's how you check. This might be helpful to your listeners. If you deliver an important piece of data, an important piece of information or an important message, and you look down and they're doing this, we call this a land of nod. Okay, so if I quickly see the land of nod, I know it's good. If I see somebody leaning back, you know this, they're not present. If I see somebody doing this, they're not present. It's up to me to engage them and get them back in that moment. So you know this, you've practiced this, but
No, it's really important, and it happens. I was just teaching a class last Monday to a group of leaders in the Middle East, and I noticed I had made a point, and I looked down, similar to what you just discussed. I looked down to see how people were accepting and what I was talking about, and I noticed one guy was on mute and he was talking on his phone. He was looking around, and so I called him out. I said, did you get that? Did you understand that?
yes.
And it's because you can't do that in a meeting where you're present, right? Where somebody's on the phone, but you can. Some people can put you on mute and do that sort of thing. So they're not hearing the message. They're just checking the box. I was told to be in this training, so I'm in this training. So,
Yeah, but we don't allow it, do we, John?
No, we don't. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about is public speaking. That's a big part of it as well. Why do you think that? I mean, fear of public speaking is one of the biggest fears that people have, and I think even on your website you say it's more fearful than death for some people. And why do you think we have so much fear of getting up in front of an audience and talking?
Well, it's not our fault, first of all. And it's a given. So anybody that says, I'm never afraid when I'm speaking, no matter how big the audience, I'm never nervous or afraid. I find that hard to believe, because here's why. We have this thing, the amygdala, that part of our brain. And the amygdala is the thing that warns us if there's a loose lion in the room, or if there's a tribe running after us of savages that want to cook us and eat us for dinner. It does its job, but the amygdala has not kept up with technology and with humankind. We've got all of these new things, and the amygdala is still at the same stage it was since, we were climbing through caves. Fortunately, we have college degrees and we can manage the amygdala. We can do a few things to inform it that it can go to sleep. It can relax like a dog, sit, stay, hopefully. And what actors learn is to prepare before. Prepare before. The same way in athletes, you watch football players, they've got to bend and stretch and do all of those things before the game. And in the Olympics, a runner has to do all they need to do before the race. An actor needs to do all we need to do before we go in front of the camera or before we hit the stage. Now, what we teach in the workshops is to, before you click join meeting, because mostly we're on Zoom or in person, before you walk out on stage, we teach a breathing exercise, which is on my website. They can click on that and I'll take them through the breathing exercise, and vocal exercises. Because the methodology that I created when I got my graduate degree, when did I get it? 2013. We proved that there are 4 components to getting ready. If you want to hear them, the 4 components that an actor needs to get ready before we go in front of the camera, before we go on stage, is our body is the first one. Are we thirsty? Are we tense? Are we breathing in and out? The first thing to go in Zoom is breathing. They call it Zoom apnea. You stop breathing, you got to breathe. The second thing is vocal exercises, simple pencil in the mouth, reading a poem. The third, as I mentioned, is know your intention. When we know our intention, our specific intention for our presentation or our scene or our line in a play, there's no room for self-doubt, fear, nerves. There's no room because we're filled with intention.
I like
and
that.
all of those components, those 3, give us the ability to improvise. Should we lose our place? Should the lights go out? Should somebody talk and interrupt us all the time? We'll have the ability to improvise.
Interesting. I like that. You know, you you mentioned that you can often use that nervous energy as a tool in the beginning of, say, maybe a speech when you step on stage for the first time, and there's that little bit of, you know, as you say, the more prepared you are, the better you're going to be. But there is always that nervous energy when you step on stage for the first time, you know, in front of a group. How can we use that little twinge of nervous energy to our advantage?
I think you froze.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Now you're back.
Okay.
What did I miss? I'm sure it was gold.
So my question is that you mentioned that, you know, we have this nervous energy, you know, when we go up in front of a group, you know, we first step on stage, even if we do all the preparing and we're ready to go, there is that little nervous energy that we have when we first step on stage. You say that we can use it to our advantage. How can we use that little nervous energy to our advantage?
How can we use that? I think the nervous energy is the gift. The nervous energy is the goal to all of this mishigas, shall we say, a Yiddish word. The goal to all of this that I'm talking about and you're talking about is to get us to enjoy this. We are the only species that can articulate what we've learned and share it verbally. It's a wonderful thing. And all of that, I believe, if I can get a little more esoteric here, is an energy force that is accessible. It's bigger than I am. You know, the sun came up this morning and I had nothing to do with it. It shocks me every morning. So I know that there's some sort of energetic thing going on that's bigger than I. And artists learn, and people learn when they get in the zone, that energy flows through us. That energy is accessible and it flows through us. All this other mishigas is to get us open out of the way of ourselves so that energy can use us as a conduit to move through us. So basically, when I feel that energy, or when an actor feels that energy, it's using it to give a gift.
Yeah.
If I can give you this, that changes the whole way I talk, and it's all about you. My audience is all about you guys. I want to help you because I'm telling you, I would rather help you than be on stage anymore. I decided that rather than act, I wanted to help others act. I wanted to help them use their style so that they could go out and be a conduit. Isn't that it was an odd realignment, because most of my life was all about see me, let me show you how well I can do this character and tell this story. And it became, no, let me help you. You've got a
Mm,
message. You're beautiful. I want you to deliver that message.
I love it.
So that only comes with that kind of scary feeling. That
Yeah.
scary feeling.
I love that. That's really good. I think you're right. I mean, that feeling when you step on stage and you're in front of the audience and you're prepared, that says you're alive, right? I mean, it's that little you're doing something that's you have a chance, right, to impart ideas to the people that are around you, and it's kind of it's a neat feeling, and so I like what you say, which is just embrace that energy and use that energy to project that into the people that you're talking to. And I like that idea a lot. And I definitely, I definitely have that feeling when I first step on stage or I'm stepping in front of a classroom. Um, but it's always almost an anticipation of what's going to happen, because I always know it ends up being very good. But it's like you just kind of anticipating it's right before everything just kind of flows, and that's a fun moment, and it just says, hey, I'm alive, I'm in this moment, and I have an opportunity to impart these ideas to this team. So I really like that. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you were talking about it a little bit, what are most leaders doing wrong with their communication and their presentations? What typically do you see? What are some, you mentioned the droning on PowerPoint slides, which drives me crazy, by the way. And but what are some other things that maybe you see that where where people just are making terrible mistakes with their communication?
Most of the mistakes are pretty typical, um, around the board. I think one of the biggies is people don't take the time to know their audience. And I know they've heard that, know your audience, but really know your audience. Do they understand your
Mm,
acronyms? What is their need? What
yeah.
do they want? It's transposing. It's not, what do I do? It's, what can I give you? What do
Mm,
you need? So we need to know our audiences better, and they don't take the time. And people talk too much because they really want, even when they care. I deal with Facebook and Uber and these huge, brilliant companies. Everyone is brilliant, or they wouldn't be there. They talk too much because they have so much
yeah.
information, and they don't want to miss anything, so they
Mm,
talk too much. There's a wonderful quote from an artist, a painter named Hans Hofmann. I don't know if you're familiar with Hans Hofmann. He passed away. Hans Hofmann said, the ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary
mm,
so that the necessary may speak. And if I've seen it once, I've seen it so many times that people talk too much and don't value being concise until after the workshop.
mm.
Take out the unnecessary. Is it interesting? Keep it. Is it informative? Keep it. Is it helpful? Keep it. If it's not, lose it.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
And that's hard to do. A lot of, it's easy to just pack everything into your slides and say, I got to tell all this to you. It's harder to be more concise and more direct. That's why, for example, I think we're attracted to TED Talks, because this is something that has been practiced and it has been rehearsed and it has been made concise so that the true points are given in that speech, and it's not a lot of extra. And
Yes.
we almost should approach when we're having a talk, approach it with that mindset, like a TED Talk, like I'm going to make this very important and impactful.
They were brilliant. They're brilliant. They're very, very wise. When we do the workshops, we were working with a section for liquid cooling. They were developing liquid cooling, which kind of scares me, but they assured me and they taught me and everything that, the water isn't going to get into the electricity and blow up the city. Clearly not. But they had slides that you can imagine how detailed they were and how much information they had on them. And do you know, as we worked this one particular slide that was a nightmare, the manager of this team said, what if we just put the number 3 on the slide?
Yeah.
And then talk to that number 3, and
Yeah.
everybody just went, yes, that's it. That's so it. So with all that, it got concise to a number 3. It was great. It was great.
I love that. That is a great story. And I like that idea of being concise. And it's funny because I had a friend of mine who always says that, try to make your presentation like a Steve Jobs presentation with respect to what's on the screen behind you. It's not a lot of words, it's a picture,
Mhm.
it's and so when I'm doing, a lot of leadership training, I put a picture up and I tell a story around that picture. And
Oh,
and there's no words on the slide, and I think when you do have a very wordy slide or whatever, and you put it up there versus three is saying something very important. A very wordy slide with, technical stuff is going to, you got people reading it, trying to figure out what it says, and they're
I
missing the whole
know.
point. So that's really, really powerful. I like that a lot. So let's you've got a new book out, and I want to talk about that. It's called the Billie Shepard Presentation Method: Why an acting teacher holds the key to greater influence, happier customers, and better relationships. So what will readers take away when they get this book and they read this book? What are the things they're going to take away from it?
I think the bottom line is they're going to see, by suggested some exercises and stories of people who I've actually worked with, and what they went through and what has become of them, which is, how fun is that to watch? Uh, they will see that authenticity in their dealings when communicating is huge, and they will learn how to get past their nerves, which is a piece. They will learn how to find their intention and not to speak until they know what they want to accomplish. And they will learn how important the truth is in the moment.
Hmm.
There there's some wonderful speeches in Shakespeare, and there are some. Look at Henry V, Band of Brothers.
Hmm.
He who loses his blood today with me shall be my brother.
All right.
Watch Kenneth Branagh do Henry V. That's what my book helps, is to give examples that people have done it before. And mostly it started out, I'm belaboring it now, I'm talking too much about it, but just to be a giveaway, a book for people to have after they took the workshop. But then it became a little more involved in that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that sounds great. I like the idea what you just said, which was watch a gifted actor make an argument or make a presentation. Like you said, Henry V would be a great example to see that, because you see an actor deliver, with passion and with intent, and I think that it's just as important as a leader talking to our employees. Maybe we're not motivating troops for battle, but we really are doing something similar to that. We're motivating our troops to accomplish something very difficult. And
It absolutely is the same. Join me and let's get this
yeah,
going.
yeah, well, I really like that a lot. Um, well, so how can people find out more about you and your company and this new book?
Well, I invite them to visit my website, billieshepard.com. And if they want to explore the book a bit, they can go to Amazon and put in the Billie Shepard Presentation Method.
That's pretty easy. That's pretty straightforward. Well, we'll go ahead and put links in the show notes for this podcast. So those of you who are listening in your car, you can go to the show notes and click on, and we'll have those links in there for Billie's website and also the book. And the book is called The Billie Shepard Presentation Method. And I really encourage leaders to take a look at this, because you might think that you're communicating, but are you really communicating, or are you just reading PowerPoint slides with your employees? And communication is a lot more, connecting with people is a lot more than just, reading a slide. It's more about looking people in the eye and communicating with passion and vision. And this book is going to help you to do that. So, Billie, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all your ideas with us.
I can't thank you enough. And boy, has it been a joy to get to know you better.
The joy has been with me as well. I really enjoyed it. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.